Hello and welcome to Searching for Service, brought to you by Rotary District 5950 and 5960. I'm Kelly Kirk.
And I'm Joe Kirk.
And we are excited to have yet again another amazing guest. But before we get into that, Joe is going to remind us of our purpose.
Yeah, the purpose of this show is to unite not only Rotarians, but non-Rotarians under the banner of service. I mean, that's really what we're all about. But to, interview amazing guests, highlight really terrific nonprofit organizations, and then how they are or may not be connected to Rotary, because we believe that Rotary is the vehicle for service.
You do that really well.
Thank you.
Nice job. So we have another guest on, and her name is Margaret. Oh, I'm going to butcher it. Ganyo.
Ganyo.
I should have known. Margaret, thank you so much. For our listeners, I'm just going to give them a little brief intro of you. So you are the executive director of Children First, Park Partnership for Success. Sounds like this is based in St. Louis Park, but for this first section of our show, we want to get to know you. So let's hear a little bit more about Margaret. And
specifically, what would you like to hear about Margaret? Tell us the entire story in 12 minutes, please.
I'll just tell you real quick. I'm getting a little tripped up because I am not used to having like somebody right here in front of us, but here we go. So Margaret, where are you from?
So right now we actually just moved from St. Louis Park to Golden Valley, but right in the West Metro area. Okay. I grew up, same thing. I grew up in Montevideo, Minnesota, but I've lived in the West for the past 30 years. So it's kind of nice to be back. We came back to be near my mom. And pro tip, do not move during a worldwide pandemic.
Yeah, that's solid advice.
Yeah.
Yes. A lot of people did move during a worldwide pandemic.
Yeah, it was a lot. But I luckily landed both at a good place for work and at a good place for Rotary. So it worked out okay in the end.
Well, speaking of which, what is the name of the Rotary that you are a part of?
So I'm part of the Rotary Club of St. Louis Park, and we are very close sister clubs with the Sunrise Rotary Club, both in St. Louis Park. We meet on different days of the week at different times of the day at the Westwood Hills Nature Center. So we have that kind of benefit of getting to experience each other's clubs, culture, and projects and activities.
Very cool.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's kind of like us. We have the Morningside Club, which we're part of, which is the morning club, and then the noon club.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, going
to have a commonality then?
It's the time period, right? Like, so some people like to do it in the morning. Some people are more of the lunch hour type.
Okay. So if there's growing interest, then they would have like one in the morning, one in the afternoon.
Or two form because of that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How long have you been a Rotary member?
I joined Rotary in 2004, so not quite 20 years. I actually am an attorney, and at about a little before the 10-year mark, I sort of shifted gears career-wise and started getting involved in community development and nonprofit management. And when I became the CEO of a regional United Way, I joined Rotary. First thing I did, because it's such a great way to build relationships in the community. And so that was one of the best things I think I did. And I can share that I, right off the bat, started getting involved in projects just because they were sort of interesting or they were quirky. And I remember I joined the Children's Literacy Project Committee, and because, nonprofit person, they're like, go do that. Yeah. Yes. And then, but here's a fun one. There was a club history committee that we just stood up because we're all volunteers, and things like banners, photos, scrapbooks, things got passed around from hand to hand over decades. and, stuff ended up in somebody's attic or somebody's garage. So we were coming up on a big anniversary, and we put together a little team to kind of find all of those bits of our history. And we found some really amazing photos, stories, etc. So that was one of my favorite Rotary gigs, was kind of looting people's basements and garages and attics.
I'm certain that you found some quite interesting material.
Yes. You know what else was really fun was some of the scrapbooks you could see the stories on the backside from the newspaper. And there was some really interesting language used in newspapers of an era. So it was kind of fun seeing history on the same pages as stories about Rotary.
That's funny. That's really good.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so we know a little bit about you, where you grew up, where you're currently at, the Rotary that you're a part of, but would love to hear a little bit more about how you got to be in your role as the executive director of Children First.
Sure. Well, it's kind of oddly combined with my Rotary experiences. So I'll just share that as I got more involved in Rotary, I got involved in what was then called the Group Study Exchange. So we had a team come visit from Brazil. I thought that was really fun. So the next thing I took on was to be a host family for a youth exchange student. And our student is from Chile, and he stayed with us for 6 months. That was so fun. So it just kept deepening my involvement in Rotary. And I went on to become like a service project committee chair. And I think probably my next favorite gig was program committee member, because we vetted, who were going to be the speakers and what were the topics of it. That was so fun. That's how I stayed on top of everything that was going on in our community, because we really had to kind of stay out front with good speakers and topics. But then I went on to complete the Rotary Leadership Institute and became a club president. At some point in all of that, I changed from kind of a traditional club to the evening club, because it was right by my office and it was in a brew pub. And that was a really nice thing. It was like combine my evening meal. Yeah. Yes. But then when we moved back here to Minnesota, I took the position of executive director with Children First, and discovered that the Rotary Club of St. Louis Park formed our organization, helped found it way back in '92. The school superintendent, St. Louis Park Public Schools, came and spoke to the club. He presented a program and was really passionate. And the next morning when he showed up to work, there were 3 Rotarians on his doorstep, checkbooks open, just asking, how can we help improve the condition of kids in our community? And so our Rotary, it has this deep history of being active in creating things that go on to change our whole community. So our organization is cited in the book, Thank You for Being Late, by Thomas Friedman. I mean, very well known. I take none of that credit because I've only been there 3 years. My predecessor, Karen Atkinson, was really a trailblazer. She worked really closely with the Search Institute, and they did really research-based work around building assets in a child's life. So it's kind of it's interestingly, my current job is a very Rotarian connected story.
Yeah, pretty natural step for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, somewhere in that mix, I heard that you were an attorney.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're a recovering attorney.
I am. I think.
So, remind me again, maybe I missed it. What is the connection? Like, when did you stop practicing, I guess, is maybe the best way for me to.
Yeah. Well, so I should share that I did poverty law. And so I worked with families who were really bumping up against systems that were not helping them. And I was very passionate about it. I went to law school at Santa Clara in Northern California. And then the first job I took out of law school was in Eastern Washington. And we opened a branch of what was then Evergreen Legal Services and just did some really amazing things. It was, I think, really exciting work because our definition of how we did our work was pretty broad. We involved the community in the work, and it really focused on changing people's lives and doing things that were really systems change efforts. Mm-hmm. Then 1996 hit, and there was a lot of shrinking of legal services. And so my husband and I made the decision to move to Salt Lake City. And I became the statewide director of pro bono services there for Utah Legal Services, bringing volunteers in, attorneys, law students, undergrads, anybody from the community who wanted to volunteer and help deliver services. So we had street law projects, did all kinds of work throughout the state. And ultimately, my husband had an opportunity in his career. We moved to Idaho. That's where he grew up. And when we got there, the state didn't have reciprocity. I'm licensed in 3 states, but none of them had reciprocity with Idaho. So they did within 2 years, but not the year I moved there. And so I decided I wanted to try my hand at something else. I'll never forget. There was a job advertised in the newspaper. It was $10 an hour, but it sounded so fun. So I went to the interview, and they created a new job for me. And it was with a former congressman from Idaho, really unique guy, who had been in President Clinton's cabinet and had done some really interesting things with the Federal Reserve Bank. And so the work that he did was community development. And that's kind of my trajectory then into United Way and doing.
That's awesome. We're going to have to cut off this segment, but thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself. We're excited to talk about Preschool for Success in the future. I'm Joe Kirk.
I'm Kelly Kirk.
We'll see you on the flip side.
Hello, and welcome back to Searching for Service, brought to you by Rotary District 5950 and 5960. I'm Kelly Kirk.
And I'm Joe Kirk.
And as a reminder, you can find us on your favorite podcast platforms, and we love
likes, comments, and 5 gold stars.
If you are tuning in for the first time, we have Margaret Ganyo.
Ganyo. Yep.
Ganyo. And she is a part of the Rotary Club of St. Louis Park, but more importantly, she is the executive director of Children First, which is also in partnership with Preschool for Success, which is all the reason that we have you on here. So we're gonna just help our listeners understand the connection between the two. So I will let you take it away, Margaret.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to talk about Preschool for Success because our club has had a lot of fun with it this year, as has the Sunrise Club in St. Louis Park. And it all started when, as club president, myself and my colleague Tamara Nuterin from Sunrise were taking part of, ongoing quarterly trainings with other presidents, learned about this signature project, learned that we could tap John Bodette from the St. Cloud Club to come and talk to our clubs. So he came, presented, and then this spring we got a phone call from him that he was submitting for a district grant. So I cannot even tell you how quickly this came together, and it's because Lisa Green with the foundation of the Sunrise Club and the St. Louis Park Public Schools leadership just buckled down and in a really tight turnaround submitted as part of St. Cloud's grant. We're so grateful to St. Cloud for sponsoring this. it was a really special opportunity because District Governor Lloyd Campbell elected to devote his discretionary funds to this effort. And so it was a pretty intensive investment. They multiplied our investment by more than 6 times. So between the two Rotary clubs, we invested $3,500, and the district came back, and the total investment then was $22,000 for preschool in St. Louis Park. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
We were so excited. Yeah.
It's been really fun too, because we had, who did we have on the show? We have Gayla.
Yeah.
Holmgren. Yeah. So we heard about Preschool for Success before it was a district
wide
it was
initiative.
The project. Yeah. And so it's been really fun to see the progression of it, and then to obviously hear how your clubs have kind of picked it up. I know that our club has as well. And, and again, it's another example of how the matching funds works and the real power of the amount of work that you can do with those funds. So it's really exciting to hear it from our chair, at least and then our listeners, if you guys have been following along the whole way, then this is a great follow-up to a really great interview. And we'll link the interview in our show notes as well, our initial one with Gayla. And then, so what has it been really easy to connect the dots since, the St. Cloud Club kind of paved the way and more or less modeled it for everybody? Was it pretty easy to pick it up and run with it?
It was. And I'd be happy also to talk about for other clubs to get started, but I'll share our experience. So first and foremost, I will have to say that St. Louis Park Public Schools and their leadership just went all in. So they decided, they made a huge commitment and doubled the number of preschool slots for the summer, which meant they had to open a second classroom, hire a teacher and a paraprofessional to do this. Preschool director Erica Scott is starting new pre and post evaluation to be able to measure the impact that this has on kids. And I mean, I hope you can hear like what a commitment that is, because that's profound. This is a good partner. And then the other thing they're doing is just really focusing on that social emotional learning this summer so that kids are ready to succeed when they start school in the fall. But I think some of the other things that the partnership with Rotary and with the school district really, what made it easy is that the school district quickly did some intensive recruitment to ensure that the children who most need preschool were the ones who got those slots, the Rotary Preschool for Success slots. Yeah. And then communications director Rachel Hicks held a press conference, and the whole St. Louis Park Public Schools team gave a tour of the preschool. And the superintendent Astenose framed his remarks around the Rotary 4-way test so that it was really unexpected. So it kind of caught me off guard. And the way he presented the school district's part of our partnership highlighted the spirit of Rotary, and I think really brought awareness to the community about Rotary and maybe piqued some interest in getting involved. We also, at that same press conference, had the preschool director and then Vanessa Hinton, the classroom teacher, who is giving up part of her summer in order to make this happen. And so I think when I say that it was fairly smooth, I think it's because we really made sure that the public school district was a strong partner, and we kind of locked arms and did things together. And I should share that 77 children and families are benefiting from this effort. And
wow, that's incredible.
And for the most part, these are children who have complex challenges to being ready for kindergarten. So poverty, homelessness, a language barrier. So it really, I think that was the other part of our partnership that we appreciated, was that the school district really understood that Rotary was about giving access to families and to children who otherwise would not have access
right.
preschool. Yeah. And they were
the other thing too, that I've, especially in our conversations, is the schools know it's a need. They just don't have an ability to fill the gap. And so, I think what happens is we had the ability to bring the resources to the table, and they were like, well, perfect. We'll open up the classroom. We'll hire the teacher. The teacher will shorten their break. I mean, we've wanted to do this. It's just maybe they didn't have the dollars, but in our experience, it's definitely been that the schools are aware, very, very aware of the problem, and the need is there. So how nice is it that you can step into that gap and then leverage the structure that was already provided? I mean, the 77 kids is absolutely astonishing. I think that the first year that Preschool for Success, I want to say it was 23 kids. And I think they've scaled it to 70 and change, but they definitely had some roadblocks along the way. And to get out the gates at 77, that's incredible. Well, absolutely incredible.
My guess is the timing of that for St. Cloud wasn't it during the pandemic?
Yeah.
So, and I was going to say, we're definitely standing on the shoulders of St. Cloud. If they hadn't have been here to help us launch this, we wouldn't have been able to do that. So that was, I think it's a really cool district story because we're all partners in this. We learn from them. And the way we went after it. So I don't know if you remember if your club had the same experience, but John Bodette came to our club with a program. And they had a bit of a toolkit. And so we followed their recommendations. We met with school district personnel, with their cabinet, we started at the superintendent level. And then we might have had a little leg up because Children First had been convening an early years action group for about a year by that time. And so we had relationships of trust already. And
so that connection was really, really valuable then. So, I mean, your involvement in the Rotary and in that organization is probably pretty critical in making sure that was more seamless.
I think it helped. And I think that probably a lot of clubs have that within their own membership without maybe even knowing it. Because a lot of Rotary members are on, the school foundation board or are engaged in advisory. Yeah. So those relationships are likely there so we do club assemblies. If you have conversations about upcoming projects during a club assembly and ask those questions and give people time to sort of connect the dots about where relationships are, I bet most clubs do have, I'm thinking a little bit of a Kevin Bacon,
Yeah, for sure.
6 degrees. Yeah. Of connection.
I had a question. It just literally fell out of my head. It was like, you guys
Kevin Bacon did bacon.
Yeah.
I was like,
the bacon distracted
that sounds delicious.
Bacon, squirrel.
Pancakes. All right. Well, we've got about a minute left here in this section. Really quick, we didn't really do this, and shame on us, can you briefly just talk about what Preschool for Success is? We kind of went right into it because we all knew, and for our listeners out there.
Sure. So it is an effort by District 5950, and I should say effort, it's a signature project, and to engage all the clubs in our district in increasing access to preschool for all children who live in our footprints. And so, this is primarily 4-year-olds, but it's a beautiful way to increase our kids' readiness to start school, to have a successful school career, and then be successful in life beyond.
I love it. And, it's amazing that if you start behind, you tend to stay behind is really the statistics show it. And the summer breaks increase that gap every year. Like I remember all the statistics and going, holy smokes. So it's been a great program for us and a great program for Rotary. And, in our next segment here, we would love to hear some success stories and then also some challenges that you've had to overcome, because I'm sure there's been many. But I'm Joe Kirk.
I'm Kelly Kirk.
And you're listening to Searching for Service. Come back now. And those 5-star reviews.
If you are tuning in for the first time, we have Margaret Ganyo. My gosh. Struggle bus. She is the executive director.
She's like,
of
it happens to me all the time.
Children First, in partnership though with Preschool for Success. And so our last segment, we talked about that connectivity and then just a brief overview of what Preschool for Success was. But what are we going to talk about this section?
Well, we briefly talked a little bit about some of the successes of the program early on for you guys in your implementation. But let's go ahead and share something that was a challenge that maybe, other clubs and other people that are listening to this that are, really championing this project as well, that they can learn from.
Sure. I think the biggest challenge is that all of our communities are very different. Mm-hmm. And so St. Cloud was actually pretty lucky in that they had a number. They had the data they needed to know about their unmet need because their public preschool had a waiting list and they had a pretty strong sense that they knew what that number was. But I just want to caution other clubs to really scale their expectations because that number doesn't really exist in the wild. I'll just say a lot of communities don't know what the unmet need is or what the number of children who are not accessing preschool and early learning opportunities are. And and I want to also, just so that as a club thinking about starting this up so that your expectations are really realistic, that is a very difficult number to obtain. Mm-hmm. So I'm part of a group that is the Minnesota Education Partnership Coalition. We're in 9 communities in the state, and we're meeting next week to talk about doing a joint study around that number and around other things related to early childhood care and education. And we're also considering adding to that study the rest of the state. So our 9 communities include St. Cloud, Austin, Northfield, Rochester, Red Wing, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and St. Louis Park. And then the 9th includes both Minneapolis and St. Paul. And so if you're not in one of those communities, we are also thinking about commissioning a study to find that number, get closer to that number through the whole state so that we can all be a little better informed. But yeah, it's really important to know. I think a lot of people think that number is an easy number to arrive at. It is not. And I just encourage you to maybe, when you have your first interaction with your school district, to be aware that they probably have a sense of what's going on, but they may not be able to communicate what that number is. I think it's fairly safe to guess that almost every one of our communities is not meeting the full need. I
was going to ask. I was like, so when you say be careful about what your expectations are of that data, now did you guys have an underrepresentation of the number of need or over?
So we know we have unmet need. We do not know. So we know that because we've done a lot of really intensive outreach to families in our community. But because we cannot articulate the number with any degree of confidence, we're going to pay somebody to help us get to that number.
Right.
So, but I would say this, I doubt there is any community who's meeting all the need. And so this project is important for all of us.
Well, and it helps, that number, that's the problem, right? That's the problem that you're looking to solve. So how do you create any sort of objection, a really obtainable goal setting? Because maybe you're in a community that does have very strong preschool, participation and the need is still there, but it's not, to the tune of $22,000 or, maybe the grant is different. Maybe like you said, every community is going to be different. Maybe the partnership is different with the school. Maybe and so that seems to be a pretty big problem. If you think about that,
Yeah. And there's another part to the issue, which I think Rotary is smart to be aware of. I like watching what St. Cloud is doing, because they're not just saying this is a numbers problem. They're not just saying we need more slots. They're saying the quality of the slots matter. Mm-hmm. And I can give you an example, because I just had this experience when I was in Idaho not long ago. We were tied with North Dakota for the most miserable rates of preschool participation nationally. And, but we had one community that was doing better. So 29% of our kids 4 years old had a preschool experience. And, but we had a community that had 42%. We're so excited about that. Then we went in and looked at their school readiness measures, and they were at 10 to 18% of their population ready. So lower income families, 10% of them were ready. Total population, 18% ready. Whereas through the rest of our service area, it was about 34%. So quality matters. So I think, I think what I like about St. Cloud's approach, and I hope other people think about as they design their own Preschool for Success project, is that you need to partner with groups who are doing it well. And there are resources to help you understand who that is. And I just want to say, if you're in one of those 9 communities where there's an education partnership coalition, our work is to convene the community around these things. And we need Rotary clubs to help us accelerate that work. But if you're not in one of those communities, look at the organization, think small. And there are other groups who are doing work throughout the state. They might be good partners. And and we have an organization called Parent Aware and Child Care Aware who help reveal some of the quality. Let's not have that conversation too deeply, because there's a lot of questions about.
I was just going to say, we're starting to go down the rabbit hole. And 12 minutes is just not enough time to go down there. And we definitely don't have enough beers at the table to do that.
But you don't have to do it alone, I think, is the message. Yeah.
It's the strategic partnerships that have sounded like it's, because that's the next piece is like, so what's the greatest success? And I mean, from your last answer was some of the strategic partnerships and how quality they were. Yeah. But what else have you guys been proud of in what you've accomplished in such a short period of time?
You know, I honestly think, obviously beyond this results for kids, I think one of the most fun things has been that we had a potential new member show up to see us during the meeting where John Bodette presented about Preschool for Success. And as we were walking out of the meeting, she said to me, okay, this is exciting. How do I get involved? She joined our club and cited that as a reason. But that's not the exciting part. That is exciting, but she's a young mom. She's also a corporate attorney. She went on to help us this past year update our bylaws, articles of incorporation, and club constitution. The worst job in the whole world. So I was dreading it as club president. She took it on. She loved it. And she never would have been there, I don't think, if Preschool for Success hadn't kind of cemented her interest in Rotary as an entity that's active and engaged in the community. And she could see herself in that. And so I just think that's a success. And it
seems like that, just a really quick kind of a little commentary on that is, it does seem like if you can grab a potential, like somebody that's just looking for service, like that's the whole idea of this show too, right? Like is to grab people that are seeking service opportunities and realizing how diverse of service opportunities Rotaries presents. And it was just right time, right place, right speaker, and it just hit, right? And
we had something like that happen with it, like internally within our club for another project, Steve May for the Afghan project, and new Rotary member also in the attorney realm, and he was able to Peter was able to pull.
He translated their law firm translated the driver's ed manual so that they could actually study for the test.
Saved the costs of a tune of like
$40,000.
It was So,
but anyway, let's pivot back to Preschool for Success, because I know that we can sit and talk about how great Rotary is, and we love to do that. But
we do.
we do want to keep it on the subject of, what do you think, like in your experience? So this is you guys have, what are you, like 6 months into this thing?
If that, yeah.
Yeah. Less than 6 months in. What has been 2 milestones that you guys really measured for success of the program?
Well, the quick one that comes to mind is number of children served. So that's 77. I think the other milestone, and this is a story that's a harder story, is that, our school districts have hard costs. And so we had 14 families who were in the process of not being able to access preschool because there's a sliding scale fee and they just could not afford it. And so 14 families were able to come back into the program. And I just can't say enough about St. Louis Park Public Schools in terms of being flexible and figuring out ways that they could partner with Rotary to keep kids, in a position to receive preschool services. Those would be the two. Yeah.
That's just, and we got about 10 seconds here, but it's so cool to see how the program has accelerated. Like that's my favorite thing about all of this. And we're excited to see or to hear about what you have for the future and what your hopes and aspirations are. I think it's going to be a good one. So you're listening to Searching for Service. I'm Joe Kirk.
I'm Kelly Kirk. We'll see you.
We'll see you. Well, I'll see you when I see you.
Boy, I guess it's time for me to wake up.
Hello and welcome back to Searching for Service, brought to you by Rotary District 5950 and 5960. I'm Kelly Kirk.
And I'm Joe Kirk.
If you are tuning in for the first time, we have Margaret Ganyo. She is the Executive Director of Children First, but more importantly, she is on today to share the partnership with Preschool for Success. And so our last section, we were talking about successes, challenges, and we ended on a really great note. But really for this last section, Margaret, we love to encourage our guests to chat about what they see, what you see the future of your program looking like, Preschool for Success, what your dreams are, your aspirations are for it. So can you take it for a second?
Yeah.
Struggling.
Well, I think you asked the great question. What are your hopes and aspirations for this program?
Yeah, I have big hopes for this program because I think it's simple and it's doing things that make big difference in people's lives. And so I have to start, when I think about this, I think about it at the district level first, because if you guys think about Polio Plus and how powerful that's been, I think in order to have that scale of impact and to have that scale of success, you have got to have some goals. And I know this year was the rollout, and I feel like that checked that off. That went really well. But I would really like to see at some level of the district, some sort of work group really focused on this signature project, come up with some agreed upon goals, simple as, number of clubs participating, number of children accessing preschool as a result of it. Maybe you want to measure other things like we got a new member out of, who knows what else that is. But I don't think you're going to have the scale of success that you could have unless you do that, unless you're intentional about what you're trying to attain. And so that's that's one of my dreams. I think in that, it would be exciting to see a small group of people who are really focused on this get build it quickly in terms of have things in writing, have it available online. I think the materials that were available to us were phenomenal. And so I would like to see that kind of toolkit grow and evolve to continue to be available online. And I think things that I would like to see added to it are, a section on examples and ideas for different sizes of clubs or different levels of commitment. Yeah. And so our club tends to have an older average age of a club member.
We'd like to use seasoned on this show.
Wait, I did not say. And the Sunrise Club is less seasoned, I would say, than our club. And so it's really fun. I mean, you can be involved in so many different ways. I think another tool, and so maybe not just, but very concrete examples, a toolkit with concrete examples of a continuum of ways to get involved.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So you can wade in. And then I don't know about you guys, but I was so impressed with the district's communications campaign that we hired Whitebox to do Children First's communication campaign.
Oh, really? That's
yes.
Great.
So
what is this?
It's a company
Rotary
that
in Motion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I would like to see us develop some fun marketing tools that would be easy to just localize, copy and paste, use some tools that are easily available, use some verbiage that people can plug in, that they can use in communicating externally about the work they're doing, so that they don't have to research, what's the benefit of preschool. It's all right there. And St. Cloud did that. They did a lot of that, but I think it'd be fun to just keep evolving it so that it's fresh. And, there's stuff there for whatever level you get involved in. I also would really like to see an online community, because I mentioned that for me, the quarterly president meetings and the year before that, the president-elect meetings have been powerful. They've really helped us develop our involvement on the district level. I would like to see the development of some sort of online community, so that if your club, it's more of a warm line, right? So if your club's interested, but you just don't even know what you're doing, that you could go to that. Maybe it's, I don't know, a Facebook group or a WhatsApp group, and kind of put your query in there. And then maybe we have a volunteer who's just watching it, who makes sure that calls for help are being answered, so that any club who's wanting to get involved can reach out and get a little bit of help and get plugged in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can share ideas as well. Like, for example, we're going after the data. If we end up doing it statewide, we could say that on there, and then every community could then tap into that report when it's available. And
I was going to ask that. I'm like, I would think that one of the goals is to have the data for every community, so that they have an ability to diagnose the need and then also scale their project.
Yeah.
Because maybe the need's 4 times what you think it is. And all of a sudden you're like, well, we can only help a quarter of all these kids, and we could have asked for more money.
How do you even obtain that data? That was one of my big questions, is how do you even obtain that data? But
Kelly's going to go door to door for you.
Thank you, Kelly. But honestly, I think it's doable to have every club in the district get involved in some way. And I think it's enriching. It makes us all together a little more with shared experiences, and you personalize it to your club. There are simple ways to be involved that don't have to involve money. I think some of the best opportunities are around volunteering. And I'll just share, here's what I'm hoping for. Particularly, I think Rotary can offer a lot to this issue as a thought partner. So think about this. How many Rotarians are employers? How many employers could be doing better with their, team if they had the ability to have children in quality care at that age? So
good point.
And one of the biggest barriers for preschool, for any of these learning opportunities, is transportation. So my dream is that we engage Rotarians as thought partners. We have some great minds who could start thinking about that issue and coming up with some solutions, because it's not just preschool, it's all the after school programs. It's, all the programming that goes on in the community. That's a huge barrier. And so that's kind of a dream for me.
We have, without going into like detail on which guests, we've had so many guests on here though, that have talked about this mission trip or this project or this initiative and a spinoff of that because of that thought process, because of the thought ideas that kept rolling and rolling. Like, we saw a need here. We went, we fulfilled it, but we also saw this other need. And then that spun off another project or, community involvement or participation to solve another issue, another big issue. So
honestly, that's exactly where Children First came from. A program at a Rotary Club and Rotarians saying, hey, we got to do. And I got to tell you, our organization has been around, Children First, for 33 years. And up until 9 months ago, we had one staff person. With our summer hiring, so that's 8, we're going to be at, I think, 12. So look what Rotary did. I mean, we're really blossoming. And Rotary is a big force, I think.
Where do you see your role in participation in this program going forward? I mean, are you looking to have a continued presence? Do you have any aspirations of being our national liaison for all school districts?
No, I have a nomination. I nominate Lloyd Campbell and John Bodette to be the national liaison.
You guys heard it. We put it out in the universe.
You guys, I am so honored to have been in the leadership gig when Lloyd was district governor, because I have never seen anyone do such sweeping, big, bold things. And I include the communications campaign and Preschool for Success.
This show is a product of it too.
And I mean, that went without saying.
Yeah. And then in partnership with 5960 as well. So Dale Quigley, so they did a really fabulous job, and they'll be staying on to help this show after their stint as district governors is over, which we're really excited about.
Do they get like a breather? Do you give them like a week?
Nope.
No, we're full speed ahead.
Down.
Well, I have thought a lot about what I would like to do to contribute to the success of the effort. And I think, and again, because in my day job, I do live in this world and I'm super passionate about it. I would like to support our 2 clubs to dig deeper into learning more about that unmet need and starting to evaluate what those factors are that could improve conditions, or, the barriers that are there that keep families who want their children participating in preschool from having the experience. And I do think that there's a big role in bringing Rotary in, again, as a thought partner in that process, because they're going to enrich it with their many, many perspectives. So that's kind of my commitment, is that we keep moving.
We're going to hold you to it now.
Oh, yeah. Fear not.
We've got about 30 seconds here, but we want to make sure that we thank you so much for being on the show. This was really fabulous. So quickly. And love the enthusiasm, the leadership, and everything that you're doing. And most of all, that we are pushing this program forward. So I'm Joe Kirk.
I'm Kelly Kirk. It's time to stop searching
and start serving.
Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.